Welcome to the Intro to C++. In part 1, we'll be finding out how to install an IDE and start with the basics of C++. So I'm going to go ahead and install Visual Studio Code. Just wait for the download to finish, and when it's finished, I'm going to go ahead and launch Visual Studio. In order to start a new C++ program, I'm going to go ahead and right-click and click New File, and let's name it part1.cpp. It's important to add the .cpp file so that your computer knows you're making a C++ code. The most important thing to set up when you're coding in C++ is importing your libraries. So we're going to go ahead and do include, and inside the arrows, we're going to do IOStream. This is the main library that we use for input and output. The next line of code is going to be using namespace std or standard. These two are important in any code that you write. The bulk of your code is going to be inside something called int main. So we're going to do int main parentheses and curly braces. So much of your code is going to be written inside here. Before we get into writing code, something important to know is comments. Programmers use comments whenever they want to write something, such as notes, that the computer doesn't read. And there are two types of these comments. One of them is single line comments. So we're going to do that by putting 2 forward slashes. So that's a single line comment. Another way is that if I want a comment to span across multiple lines, I'm going to go forward slash, star, and start typing. And to end it, simply do the opposite, star, forward slash. These are going to be really important once we get into programs with more lines of code. So today, let's start with something simple, like writing output. And this cout is what you use for standard output in C++. So we're going to follow this with an insertion operator, which looks like that. And then let's put the text. So like hello world. In order to go to the next line in C++, we use something called endline. So we're going to put another insertion operator because we're concatenating this, or we're putting this after. And then I'm going to put endline, which is ENDL. An important thing to know in C++ is every line of code ends with a semicolon, and this is really important. So before we run the code, in int main, the last thing you always include is return 0. You need to include this to successfully exit the int main. So in order to compile the code, it's going to be g++, and then the name of the file. So that's part1.cpp. And in order to run the file that we just compiled, I'm going to do /a.out. And we can see our output right here. So that's it for today.